we've given you our predictions for these games already, but I want us to double down on it a little bit right now. Not speaking to the KFC sandwich that was breadless and it was like 2 chicken breasts as the bread, beside the point. We're doubling down on our playoff predictions, all right? So Boise State, Penn State, we've told you we think Penn State wins the football game. And in case you missed it, I love Ashton Jeanty, dude. I love Ashton Jeanty. I love that staff at Boise State. I love the way they operate. Hear me clearly. There is a world where Ashton Jeanty throws on the JanSport Player of the Year here for us on the hard count, and just goes crazy, and Boise State wins the football game. The concern for me is that would also require a bit of a Penn State implosion, because this defensive line, this defensive front in general, will be the best that Boise State's played all year. Top 10 in the country when it comes to rush yards allowed per game. If Penn State brings their B-plus game and Boise State brings their A-plus game, or their A-minus game, Penn State wins and covers, in my humble opinion. And the reason why I feel that way, I spoke about Ashton Jeanty and how awesome he is. Everyone's seen that. Everyone knows how good the dude is. Everyone saw him finish second in the Heisman Trophy race. A lot of the college football social media folks thought he should have finished first. Regardless, dude's special. I worry a little bit about how dependent they are on Ashton Jeanty. Now, Penn State, they're dependent on a couple of players as well, and Tyler Warren and that backfield, totally true. But, like, the numbers are jarring when you really take a look at them. Ashton Jeanty has accounted for 30 of the 51 offensive touchdowns Boise State has had this year. Ashton Jeanty has accounted for 42% of the yards on offense that Boise State has gotten this year. Again, far be it for me to tell you he won't have a great game against Penn State, but if they're able to just minimize his impact, I don't love the counterpunch ability for Boise State. So if you're telling me he goes off and they win the football game, more power to you. James Franklin, knowing this Penn State team, as much as he gets dogged for not winning big games and his record against top 10 teams, whatever, they win the games they're supposed to win. And this is a game that Penn State, quite frankly, against a G5 rep in Boise State is supposed to win. So call it bias, call it what you want. To me, that's football. To me, that's Penn State winning this ball game. Texas and Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. Honestly, a very similar breakdown to me when we talk about Boise State and Penn State as we do Texas and Arizona State. Arizona State, a 61% run the football team. Here's my concern. Nobody has run against Texas. And Cam Scadaboo's awesome. Didn't have the best day against Texas Tech. If you want to be nitpicky and talk about performances where he hasn't been, first team all everything, he's awesome. But again, Texas up front, one of the best defenses against the run in the country. I don't love the ability for Sam Leavitt to counterpunch. I love him a lot more with Xavier Guillory, but this Texas front man and this Texas outfit overall it's too stout. And the tricky thing about this is, like, you look at the numbers for Arizona State, they're also good against the run. They're also good up front. Like, the trenches, again, within the box score, looks really solid for Arizona State. My concern is we don't play football in the box score. Play it on the football field. Play it on grass. We play it with big human beings moving other big human beings. Now, we'll see how healthy Texas is up front on the offensive line, but I don't know that I trust the numbers as much as I do the big human beings when we talk about this matchup. So there's that part of it. And then the last thing I'll say here, the thing with Arizona State that also makes me a little bit nervous is the strength of this Texas offense coming into the year was supposed to be the passing game. We haven't seen that shoe drop just yet. Kind of like how you felt against Tennessee if you're Ohio State. You hadn't really seen that gear totally show itself just yet. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't happen. Just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I think it's only a matter of time before it does happen. This Arizona State secondary isn't actually all that phenomenal, even with the great year they've had as a team. So, again, we like Texas to win. I've taken Texas to cover. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but I do think that Texas beats a frisky Arizona State team. I think that the Jimmies and the Joes are too different for Texas when it comes to that game against Arizona State. Now, Oregon and Ohio State in the Rose Bowl is going to be, it might be the best game of the entire round 2 slate. So much of this matchup to me is interesting because it cancels each other out. Like, are there slight leans you would give to certain sectors of these football teams over the other? Yeah, of course. Like, you probably take the Ohio State receiving core over the Oregon DBs. Probably true. But, like, by how much? By, like, a few percentage points, maybe? Same deal with the Oregon receiving core versus the Ohio State DBs. Based on last week, or last time they played, it was barbecue chicken for Oregon on that side of the football. They were cooking those dudes. Is that going to happen again? That was kind of surprised me a little bit if they had that much success through the air and Dylan Gabriel went for like 330 plus. Like, okay. So with all the pieces that cancel out here, you go down the list here, talk about the trenches, talk about the running back rooms, whatever. I think in large part, you add all those up, it comes out to a relatively even matchup in a lot of ways. So when the matchups are even, what have we said since the summer? It comes down to quarterback play. It comes down to which quarterback do you trust more. And I love Will Howard. I've said I think Will Howard is good enough to win you a national championship. I don't know that he's better than Dylan Gabriel in this spot. Now, he could have a better game and they could win the football game, but if you're telling me to make a prediction of picking the quarterback that's been more consistent, that's been more efficient, that is a completion percentage over 73% on the year, I believe, who went crazy against this team last time, I think Dylan Gabriel and this team is far too poised to drop this game. I also will add this. I like Ohio State a lot more in this spot if they looked a little, it sounds funny to say, but they kind of limped out of the Tennessee game. I like Ohio State a lot more with a low profile, is what I'm trying to say here, because everybody saw Ohio State just, belt to hindquarters against Tennessee, man. It was the blowout that none of us really saw coming, if we're going to be honest here overall. And so for that to happen, Oregon also saw that. Oregon also saw Ohio State just take that SEC defensive line to school. What that does is I think it puts them a little bit more on red alert, gives them a little bit more drive than maybe you even needed before. Far be it from me to question Dan Lanning and getting his team ready to play, but if they needed any extra external juice, if they needed any of that at all, I think they have it with that game they saw with Ohio State and Tennessee. So we like Oregon to win that football game for the second time over the Buckeyes in Pasadena for all those reasons we just laid out for you. Last one here, the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Notre Dame, man. Now, I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth, but there's a path for Notre Dame to win this game. Right? You could tell me that Riley Leonard does what Haynes King did with the Georgia Tech-Georgia game, and he has a great day on the ground. You could tell me Gunnar Stockton just, doesn't meet the moment and has multiple turnovers. You could paint that picture for me, and it wouldn't be the biggest stretch in the world. I don't have to squint to see that happening. But at the same time, lost in the shuffle of Notre Dame essentially dominating Indiana in their first-round playoff game was the fact that I feel like Indiana got some reasonable pressure on Riley Leonard. Now, it didn't really show up in the category of sacks, but when I watched that happen, I couldn't help but feel like, Indiana's a good front. But Indiana also, in their bedroom, has a poster of the Georgia defensive front for who they want to be when they grow up. So if Indiana's doing that against Notre Dame, what's Georgia going to do? And I think that really is kind of the end-all, be-all here. Gunnar Stockton, as long as he doesn't have a 5-turnover game, Georgia should be in relatively good shape when it comes to controlling the line of scrimmage against that Notre Dame offensive line. So I think the playoff survival traits here, we'll talk about more with Georgia in a second, but Kirby off of 24 days to prep and that team to rest, we like Georgia to beat Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl for those reasons when it comes to physicality. So I cannot wait for this. I am so fired up. This is actually here now. Playoff mode for everyone activated. Mamba mentality across the board. We'll see who brings it, man.